Is this working okay? Anyone, can you hear me? Glendon? All right. Before I call this meeting to order, I'll note for the record that I will serve as acting chair for today's meeting. I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the New York State Urban Development Corporation, doing business as Empire State Development, for Thursday, September 20th, 2018. As noted on the agenda posted to the internet, we welcome public comment on the items on our agenda. Speakers' comments may only address the items considered at today's meeting. As always, the directors have received the written materials in advance and are free to ask questions at any time. At this time, I'll ask directors whether anyone has any potential conflicts of interest with respect to any of the items on the agenda. The first item on today's agenda is the approval of the minutes of August 2016, 2018. Any questions, comments, additions, or deletions with respect to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you. Second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Thank you. Before Maria Cassidy presents an item relating to the appointment of officers, I just want to introduce a few folks. And I want to start with some sad news. Kevin Eunice's mother-in-law got ill and passed away suddenly this week, just in the last couple of days, which is why Kevin couldn't join us. So we want to send our condolences on behalf of VSD to Kevin, to Aaron, his wife, and their family. I want to, on a more positive note, I want to introduce Doug Brissett, who joined us as treasurer of ESD. Doug has what I refer to as a Fortune 500 resume portfolio of companies that he has worked for over time in different financial positions. Doug, including, as I recall, Celgene, ADP, Lucent, AT&T, and probably others. So I want to welcome you, Doug, to the position of treasurer, which is a very important position here at ESD, and give the opportunity to make any comments or anything at all.
Thanks very much, Howard, and of course Elaine and the rest of the team. You may notice that some of those companies that Howard mentioned are based in New Jersey, and I've spent most of my professional career in New Jersey, but I grew up in Liverpool, New York. My family still resides in central New York, and so this is kind of a coming home and get back to work where I grew up and where I started from. So thanks very much for this opportunity.
Great, thank you for joining us. Where, again, is New Jersey?
Somewhere across the river somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
I just couldn't recall. Thank you. I want to welcome Valerie White, who has joined ESD recently as our Executive Vice President of the Division of Minority Women Business Enterprise. I know Valerie has a background with the Brooklyn Navy Yard, where she joined us from, and the City of New York and S&P. So she has quite an accomplished and eclectic background, and Fordham University Law School. Valerie. All right.
Go Rams. Go Rams.
Go Rams. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you. I'm just extraordinarily pleased to be here and utilize the experiences that I have to help further the goal of the minority and women business enterprise and that of ESD. So thank you very much, and looking forward to working with everyone.
Great. Likewise. I am pleased to announce to the board that Rich Newman has agreed to serve as Chief of Staff here at ESD. Many of you know Lindsay, who got a promotion to the chamber a few months ago, and we're very pleased that Rich has agreed to serve as Chief of Staff, which is a particularly important role here, very helpful to me personally and the entire agency. I can tell you something about Rich's background. Rich has extensive background in both the private sector and the public sector. Rich started his career, I don't want to date Rich in any way, but in the 70s, back when I started my career too, with a company you may have heard of, Procter & Gamble, and he has also been very active in the field of advertising. He worked with Ogilvy, I think, for many years in significant management positions. He has been with ESD for 5 years, which is even longer than I've been here, which I feel like I've been here a while now. So anyway, Rich has distinguished himself, I think, with his colleagues and is familiar with all of our strategies. I've always leaned on the Chief of Staff to really help lead our economic development efforts around the state, and the regional directors will report to Rich. And he'll be, as Chief of Staffs are, helpful to everyone from people in the chamber to people here at ESD. And it's a unique role, so thank you. And Rich is uniquely qualified, so thank you for taking that position, Rich.
Thanks, Howard. It's a great honor, and I hope I can meet everybody's expectations and help wherever I can.
Great, thank you. Maria, that was a long introduction to your appointment of officers. I think Rich you'll be appointed in your capacity, I think, at the next meeting, but go on.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The directors are being requested this morning to appoint Ms. Valerie White to the Office of Executive Vice President, Minority and Women Business Development, and Mr. Douglas Brissett to the Office of Treasurer. Ms. White also serves as the Executive Director of the Division of Minority and Women's Business Development with our sister agency, the Department of Economic Development. In these roles, Ms. White will be responsible for MWBE certification, maintenance of the business directory, and leading the MWBE team in developing and implementing strategies for MWBE development through, among other things, education and outreach to both state agencies and private sector firms. As the chairman has indicated, Ms. White comes to us with substantial public and private sector experience, including positions with the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation and Standard & Poor's. Ms. White holds both a bachelor's and JD degrees from Fordham University and a master's degree, as well as a certificate in organizational development from the New School. Ms. White's appointment would be effective as of July 23, 2018. The directors are also asked to appoint Mr. Douglas Brissett to the Office of Treasurer. As Treasurer, Mr. Brissett would be responsible for cash, investment, and debt management, as well as our debt issuances. Mr. Brissett joins ESD following a 30-year private sector career in finance and treasury operations, including positions with Celgene Corporation, ADP, Pharmacia and Upjohn, Lucent Technologies, and AT&T. Mr. Brissett holds a BS in economics from Rutgers University and an MBA from Syracuse University. Mr. Brissett's appointment would be effective as of August 20th, 2018.
Great. Thanks, Maria. Is there a motion to approve the appointment, these two appointments? Cesar, second. Hilda, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, thank you and congratulations. As we always say, be careful that you get what you wish for. Let me just give a couple of highlights since the last board meeting, some of the highlights across the state. Just a small representative sample. We did the governor did open the Expo Center at the State Fairgrounds, 136,000 square foot new building built in what I think was maybe even less than a year, which is a pretty remarkable accomplishment. As I understand it, this is the largest expo center between Boston, Massachusetts, and Cleveland, Ohio, and it gives the Expo Center an opportunity to generate economic development for the region year-round as opposed to just a few weeks a year. So we're excited about that. And I know the Expo Center set new records again. The State Fair set new records again this year. So congratulations, and thanks to Rich and the whole team for their help in promoting the Expo Center and making it happen. We opened the Western New York Welcome Center recently, which is a spectacular facility on Grand Island, which is not coincidentally located right between Niagara Falls and Buffalo, which are two tourism meccas in Western New York, as we very purposefully try to combine and leverage the outdoor adventure tourism of Niagara Falls with the kind of cultural, historic assets of Buffalo, be it architecture, world-class modern and contemporary art, and of course, the literally over 12 million people that come to Niagara Falls every year. Tourism's a huge driver in the Western New York economy, and so the Welcome Center, I think, there will get a lot of use, and it is something to behold. It's very extremely impressive. On the business development side, you may have seen Regeneron announced, and the governor announced with Len from Regeneron 1,500 new biotech jobs, 1,500 new biotech jobs over the next 7 years, an $800 million investment from Regeneron in both research and development and manufacturing in Rensselaer County. So this is an extraordinary commitment and expansion of Regeneron's life science business, which, as you know, is a large focus for the governor across the state. Plug Power in Clifton Park, New York, announced 100 new jobs. They supply components to the clean energy industry as manufacturers, so we're excited about that project. You may have seen Amphenol Aerospace in the Southern Tier is installing a 5-megawatt solar farm in Delaware County to help with their electrical needs, so a tremendous commitment to clean energy. Corel Brands, which used to be part of Corning, has announced a $50 million modernization of their facility. Has anyone here ever used Corel Livingware? Rich? I did too, by the way. When I first got married, we got Corel Livingware. I bought it. I explained to my wife that Corel Livingware was indestructible. She said, well, it's not really indestructible. It's probably just more durable. I said, no, it's indestructible. I said, for example, if I go outside right now on our driveway, I could lift Corel Livingware above my head and drop it on our driveway and it will not break. She said, that's really not likely to happen. I said, let's go outside. I won't tell you what happened, but I recommend you never play Frisbee with Corel Livingware on your driveway. But the product is extraordinary. You shouldn't go out and throw it around your driveway. But other than that, as far as dishware goes, it's fabulous. I just want to say that. The governor announced a new entrance to Penn Station. That will be on 33rd near 7th Avenue. And we had the opportunity, and is additionally what will be a widened Long Island Railroad corridor, which will be very welcome. We also, at the same time, had the opportunity to tour the media around a rapidly evolving, very exciting Moynihan train hall. And I know Michael Evans has a presentation. He's going to update everyone, right, Michael, on Moynihan and what's going on. Global New York, all of our trade reps from around the world will be touring a number of businesses across the state between October 18th and October 25th. So trade reps from Canada, Mexico, Europe, South Africa, Israel, and China will be here, so we're excited about that. Syracuse hosted the National and International Conference on Unmanned Aerial Systems. I know we have an item on our agenda today that relates to this growing sector in Central New York, both in Central New York and the Mohawk Valley. So we're excited about that. Owego, New York won the DRI. We announced Owego, New York won the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. So that was some more good news for Owego and our whole commitment to revitalizing downtowns across the state. With that, Michael, I think I'm going to turn it over to you to do a presentation on Moynihan Train Hall progress.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, well, while the presentation or the screen is warming up, I'll just say thank you to Howard, who led the media tour through the Farley building and has been, a huge supporter of the project. And also thank you to the directors. I feel like I was here every month for a couple of years seeking authorizations, contract approvals, general project plan amendments. And it's been a little while, but that period of quiet shouldn't be a sign that we haven't been busy. In fact, we've been busier than ever across town on 8th Avenue and 9th Avenue actually constructing the project. So I know there are some new directors, so I'll start with just a very brief overview of the project and kind of the deal that the directors approved and the deal dynamics, and then get into the meat of the construction update and some of the things that Howard and the media saw a couple of weeks ago when they walked through the site. So again, this is a photo of the historic Farley building actually shortly before it opened in 1914. The original building is just over 100 years old, and it was actually it was part of the construction of the original Pennsylvania station, and the funding that the Pennsylvania Railroad got from selling this parcel to the post office helped fund the original Pennsylvania station. And this building, what a lot of people don't realize is it was actually built right over the existing tracks and platforms of Penn Station, because that's how the mail that mostly traveled by rail at that point in time got up and down into the building and got distributed out through the city. So I actually like to tell people that the post office was a train station at one time. It just happened to be a train station for letters and packages, and we're just spending a couple of $1 billion to make it a train station for people. Why are we doing that? We're doing that because Penn Station today is completely inadequate, not only to meet the demands that are placed on it today on a daily basis, but all the future demand in that part of Manhattan that is coming with the construction of Hudson Yards and all of the development on the west side. Just to put that a little bit in perspective, two statistics. One, when the original Pennsylvania station was torn down in the mid 1960s, rail travel was kind of at its nadir, and there were only about 200,000 people a day using the facility. So by burying the facility underground, really paring it back, they created a facility that was inhospitable and unpleasant, but met the demands of that point in time. Rail travel has dramatically rebounded in the intervening years. It has gone from about 200,000 people a day moving through that facility to about 700,000 people a day. And so anyone who's passed through there at rush hour knows that it is not designed to handle 700,000 people a day. The number of trains going through the facility has also doubled since the late 60s and early 70s. When Amtrak was formed, there were less than 700 trains a day, and now there are about 1,400 trains a day going through the facility. And so there's a need to also address that. And then in terms of the amount of demand that is coming on the horizon, it's really remarkable. Between 42nd Street and 14th Street, west of 8th Avenue, the construction in the last 5 to 10 years, or projected to be completed in the next 5 to 10 years, totals about 40 million square feet, which is about half of downtown Boston, or the size of a Midwestern state capital city. So enormous amount of demand that is also down the road, and a facility that today is unable to even meet the demands of rush hour this afternoon. So this project fundamentally is about taking an underutilized building where mail volume has, as train volume did many years ago, has declined precipitously, and the post office no longer needed this facility to the same extent. Taking this beautiful historic building and repurposing it in order to expand Penn Station, not replace Penn Station, but dramatically expand it. And what type of expansion? Well, we're going to increase the amount of concourse space by moving west by nearly 80%. And that's dramatic because it's going to spread that 700,000 people across 2 blocks instead of 1. And we're also going to activate the western third of the platforms, which is where the mail trains used to load and unload their cargo. and put about 40% additional vertical circulation. So new stairs, escalators, and elevators that will get people on and off those platforms more quickly. So all of this combines to increase the concourse capacity of the overall facility, dramatically increase the track and platform capacity in terms of the number of trains, hopefully, that we'll be able to move through because people will be able to get on and off them faster, and be the first step in an overall redevelopment of the facility that will hopefully include new tunnels under the Hudson River eventually as part of the Gateway program. The state, through ESD, has undertaken this project in a couple of phases. For many years, this project had been a challenging Rubik's Cube of complex overlapping jurisdictions, technical complexity, and increasing escalating costs. But by breaking the project up into phases, the state finally found kind of the winning formula here and has seen success after success. So phase one of the project was the construction of a new concourse underneath the grand staircase of the post office, west of 8th Avenue. It included new elevators to the platforms, which overnight was a dramatic improvement, especially for people with accessibility issues. Prior to this construction and the opening of this concourse, Penn Station was a maze of a nightmare for people trying to find an elevator down to the platform. We've also improved subway connections from the 8th Avenue subway to the station, and we opened this new facility in June of 2017, and I'm pleased to say we opened it pretty much to unanimous acclaim. We actually had a firm do an independent survey this past year. 90% of respondents said that their trip was more convenient, and 89% responded that the new concourse was excellent. And more than 50,000 daily passengers are using the facility. Anecdotally, I can report that at 6 a.m., the day we opened on June 15th, 2017, one of the first passengers to get off the train looked wide-eyed and turned to the person next to them and said, "I think I got off in the wrong city." So I knew that we had been successful. We've also won basically every single infrastructure award that's out there for the new concourse, which we're very proud of, and the team has been very pleased across the board with the response to the project. But we didn't stop there. The success of phase one paved the way for phase two. Phase one was an extremely technically complicated project in terms of the logistics of constructing basically in thin air, right above the trains of the busiest transportation hub in the Western Hemisphere, an entire new structure. So complicated that many people were concerned that this could never be built because the station is so busy and the impact to the trains and the public would be too significant. We were able to construct all of that structure from 10 p.m. on Friday night until 5 a.m. on Monday morning, 2 tracks and 1 platform at a time, and do it with minimal impact to the traveling public. So that, and we also did it on schedule and on budget. So showing that success, we've moved forward with phase 2 of the project, which is a $1.6 billion project to transform what was the old sorting room of the original Farley building into a new train hall for Amtrak and Long Island Railroad. And it's only a part of the redevelopment of the entire building, which I'll talk about as well. As part of the redevelopment, we'll see a 250,000 square foot state-of-the-art train hall with fantastic top-line passenger amenities and a design that is a contemporary design, but also honors the history of the building. And the history of the building is, in fact, aside from the historic facade and the historic Beaux-Arts post office lobby, was a building that was an industrial building, a building where mail was sorted and handled, where the post office had its workshops, its cart maintenance, its postal police store holding cells. And so what we have done is salvage the historic structural steel of the building and expose that and kind of celebrate the industrial history of that great era of American industrialization. And as Howard saw, the 4 vaults of a giant new skylight, an acre of glass, are being constructed and will rest on the steel trusses that were constructed over 100 years ago. Bethlehem steel, part of the McKim Mead and White design of the original building. We will be relocating all of Amtrak's passenger operations across 8th Avenue to the new facility. This is a rendering of one of the new waiting areas. And Long Island Railroad, importantly, will be expanding to the west, keeping all of their space in Penn Station, but building new space west to meet the demand of Hudson Yards and to provide swing space as they embark on their own renovation of Penn Station, which Howard mentioned. Of course, we're going to be restoring a New York City landmark. We are restoring the entire exterior of this remarkable building that was designed by the same architects as the original Pennsylvania Station and was one of the first buildings landmarked under the landmark law that was passed after the destruction of Pennsylvania Station. And we are going to be working with our development partners who are going to be in charge of developing and operating and managing over 100,000 square feet of high quality retail and restaurants around the train hall, and also repurposing former post office mail sorting floors into commercial office space, really aimed at the creative class and the technology industry here in New York. And that is a cross section of the train hall, and you can see the skylight vaults. The renderings, I feel, are always a little deceptive because the size of that train hall is about the same size as the main room at Grand Central Terminal. Our project is being undertaken as a public-private partnership, and we spent over 1.5 years in a procurement process that was competitive and involved the top contractors and developers in the city and resulted in the selection of a developer-builder team consisting of the related companies, Vornado Realty Trust and Skanska USA, who will be executing the design by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill. And of course, they'll be overseen and directed by the public project sponsors, of which ESD is the lead, but is working very closely with Long Island Railroad and Amtrak, and also with our colleagues at the Port Authority and their capital planning and engineering group, who have been really working with ESD since 2010 on Phase 1 and Phase 2. We're also working with the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, who will be permitting the project and is providing certain construction oversight expertise, and then our consultant construction manager supporting my team is WSP. Just the structure of the deal is that the ESD directors approved in 2017. Again, ESD will retain the fee ownership of the building, but has entered into a 99-year master lease with the joint venture, the development joint venture of Related and Vornado. Amtrak, as it is leaving permanently Penn Station, will retain control of its condominium unit within the building. There will be a commercial condominium created towards the end of construction. The MTA will get a long-term lease for its space. The post office will remain, but in a much more truncated manner, and will keep its historic storefront, which is really the heart of its operations in New York City, but will be a tenant to the developer, and then the developer is actually the contractual entity that holds the construction contract with the general contractor, and the developer, as part of the agreements, must deliver the train hall to our plans and specifications, and is also in charge of all of the commercial leasing. With that, I'll give a quick construction update. You know, we executed the development agreements in June of 2017. On the very same day we opened Phase 1, June 15th, it was a busy day, and we got underway right away. In fact, we had already, upon designation, authorized some early work in the building to allow for site mobilization, abatement and early demolition work. That started in January of 2017. So at this point, we're over a year and a half into construction, and I want to focus on a couple of the key activities that we've undertaken and that are moving forward. So site mobilization, we've got over 150 field staff managing the project between Skanska's engineers, superintendents, and our own construction management personnel. And they're supervising on a daily basis anywhere from 600 to 700 construction workers that are working 2 full shifts and occasionally a 3rd shift for certain activities. And of course, all the work happening at the track and platform level still happens from 10 p.m. on Friday night until 5 a.m. on Monday morning, which is the only time that the railroads can have enough spare capacity in the system to turn over and turn off the power to certain tracks and platforms. We've already removed 1,500 tons of steel from the project. One of our first activities, which is shown here, was to demolish the original sorting room floor in order to create the giant train hall and the atrium space. And we actually did a fantastic event with Governor Cuomo last August once that major piece of demolition was completed. Since then, we've already installed 3,100 tons of new steel, including reinforcing the historic trusses, which you can see here. We have been working those intense weekends down at the track and platform level, which is one of the critical pieces of work in order to get the escalators down from the train hall. And we now have 6 of 11 escalators already in place, and we will complete the rest of the escalators in the next 6 months. The facade restoration is progressing. We began on 31st Street, where there has been scaffolding up for over a year, and the first pieces of scaffolding are actually coming down, and you can see a building that has essentially not had any cleaning for over 100 years is now returning to its original shine, McKim Mead & White shine, with all of the grime cleaned off and the original cornice being restored and the windows being restored. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing work is really picking up now that most of the demolition work is done. This is a shot of the one of the mechanical rooms on the roof that is going up. This past month we had significant amount of mechanical equipment delivered to the site that's beginning to be installed: chillers, air handling units, and boilers. And then, of course, the skylights. This is the mid-block skylight between the 2 buildings. All of the steel framing is in place. The cabling, which will tension the structure, has been laid, and the first pieces of glass have been installed and will be continuing over the course of the fall and early winter. We've learned a lot, or our contractor has learned a lot from folks starting with this first smaller skylight. And it is really helping us move along on schedule on the main skylight, which you can see a shot here. So 2 of the 4 vaults, the steel frame has already been installed. The scaffolding is going in for the final 2 vaults, and these skylights will largely be complete by the latter half of next year. Which will allow the contractor to spend the final year and a half on the interior finishes. So again, looking ahead to the next year, we're looking to install the skylight glass on both skylights, complete the escalator and elevator work, begin the interior finishes, all heading towards a targeted substantial completion at the very end of December in 2020, with an opening in the first quarter of 2021. And with that, I will pause for any questions.
Well, first of all, just amazing work on an exciting and historic project. So, it's really needed. Just 2 questions. The event for when the sorting rooms were completed, was that the one where Senator Moynihan's daughter, I think, was there, and his
Yes.
nephew, Michael? Yeah, okay. I was there. That was a terrific event. And then quickly glossed over sort of all the overlapping jurisdictions, which I'm sure was a nightmare, but just out of curiosity, I mean, both federal and city, I mean, based on,
Yes, there have been, obviously the state has been in the lead on the project for many years, but requires close coordination with both the city. There is of the 1.6 billion, $500 million of that is part of a loan from the federal government based on 35 years of future property tax revenues. So that financing in and of itself required close coordination, cooperation, and agreement between the state, city, and federal government. That's just one example of many of where there have been the need for cooperation and agreement between different parties, in addition to the National Railroad, which is actually a private company, despite, largely being controlled by the federal government, but has its own interests, and of course the MTA. Of the, another anecdote, of all the that includes also, of course, the post office, which had to be in agreement with a bunch of different things, different departments of transportation, other things. At one point in the deal, we had over 15 major New York City law firms working on the project.
All right, that's not anything we're that proud of, actually.
that could have the most lasting effects on him.
Are there any other questions for Michael on the progress of Moynihan from directors? Okay, we're going to thank Mike. Thank you. We're proud of what you're doing in the team. Of course, the governor's support for transportation infrastructure, ESD, through Moynihan and through financing of the airports, obviously plays a significant role in this considerable investment in transportation. So thank you very much. Great job, Mike. Glendon, you'll give us a quick summary before we move on to the regional reports.
Yes, thank you, Howard. The directors will be requested to consider 13 projects totaling $62,611,148 in a grant and a loan. The projects include 3 Buffalo Regional Innovation Cluster Awards, 5 Regional Council Awards, and 5 Discretionary Awards. The projects will take place in the Western New York, North Country, Capital, Central New York, Finger Lakes, and Mohawk Valley regions, leverage over $178 million of additional investment, retain 956 jobs, and create 285 jobs in the state. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Glendon. We're going to move on to the regional presentations. Jim Fail from Central New York. Are you on the line, Jim?
Yes.
All right, take it away.
I have one project that I'm bringing to the board today for approval. It is a $15 million grant for Center State Corporation of Economic Opportunity. This is to fund rounds 3, 4, and 5 of their Genius New York business competition. This brings consistency with the other business competitions around the state that have been funded for 5 years. They've had the first 2 years. They're in the middle of the 3rd year right now. They're taking applications through the end of this month. We'll select 6 cohorts and start up in January for round 3. So this will fund the Business Accelerator competition, which is focused on unmanned systems, data decision, and the Internet of Things. The project also does include some slight renovations to the accelerator space in order to make room for the next round of contingents. This has been a very successful business competition. The first prize winner gets $1 million, and then the remaining 4 winners will get $500,000. One of the goals was to try to keep these companies here after their 1-year commitment to stay in Central New York. And to date, 11 out of the 12 companies that were funded in the first 2 rounds have stayed in Central New York. We're building a very strong ecosystem around this initiative because of these fundings. And I would also, at this point in time, like to introduce one of the round 1 winners of the Genius competition, Aaron Singer. He's the COO of a company called Automodality. and he's just going to give an overview of what his company does and how this competition has helped them. And they came from California. We've actually had one last thing. The applications we have international exposure. Last year's winner was from Switzerland, so this is a very wide ranging application process. So, Aaron, if you're able to join.
Yes, I'm here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep. Thanks for joining, Aaron.
You're very welcome, and thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Automodality is a startup incorporated here in the great state of New York, and we are a small robotics autonomous platform. Essentially, we're creating an operating system for small robotic systems. Much of our work is concentrated in the UAV space. I wanted to start by mentioning that I think Accelerator is a fantastic name for this program. Automodality was started by our two founders, Dan Henage and Ed Cook, literally in the garage of Ed Cook's house, and winning the Genius Grant literally did provide that acceleration that we needed out of the garage into our next phase of growth. The Genius Grant has been critical to our moving forward and to our trajectory over the last couple of years. We have continued on to raise further investment. One investment from DJI, which is the leading drone manufacturer in the world, as well as Lightcap Investments that provided a seed round for us, and we're about to embark on our Series A round. We're starting our road show here in just a couple of weeks. Actually, starting it today, I'm here in New York City to present to a number of venture capital firms this afternoon. We're working with the New York Department of Transportation. Much of our applications that we're developing off of our platform are focused on infrastructure inspection and survey. And we are looking forward to working. We're already starting conversations with other New York agencies, such as the MTA right here in New York City. New York has really established themselves as a leader in this space, and we see New York, the state, as being continuing to be a big player, especially in the unmanned aerial vehicle space. And I like to mention that Silicon Valley, although Silicon Valley is now sort of synonymous with high tech, it really began a couple of generations ago with a couple of guys in their garage. One of them was, of course, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and the other was Hewlett Packard, and a number of investors who sort of saw the writing on the wall. And those key investments to create companies like HP and Apple created Silicon Valley, and Center State has done a fantastic job of establishing a real center of early autonomous robotics work and business activity, which I think has the germ of becoming something much bigger in the future.
Hey, Aaron.
So Automodality, yeah.
We're just going to ask you to wrap it up like in the next 15 seconds, and we'll see if anyone has any questions, okay?
Sure. My last point was simply that we are planning in continuing to grow our presence here in New York State. We've established an office in Syracuse and have made executive hires out there. We'll be growing our footprint over the next 18 to 24 months as we continue with our Series A raise.
Okay, thank you. So we invited Aaron just to give you a sense on a business. You know, we do these business plan competitions or accelerators. Success begets success. We're becoming more and more significant to this industry in Central New York. And now we're committing to another 3 years of these types of really, it's becoming a mecca for innovative, growing, oftentimes early stage, but developing companies with really, very promising technologies. And we're also getting a lot of interest both nationally and internationally for incumbent companies in this space looking to locate in and around Syracuse as well. So let me ask if there's any questions from directors for Aaron or Jim on this item.
Just to understand the financing, it's an ESD grant. Is the model such that there's, concomitant financing outside, or is it you get these companies off the ground and then, as in this case, they go and raise additional later stage financing?
Yes, it would be the latter. What
Okay.
you explained, it's more get them up, get them going, and then hopefully get them so that they can go to the next rounds of VC.
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions?
And I might add that Center State was very instrumental in helping us with contacts and initial meetings for our subsequent raises.
Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve this item? Eric, is there a second? Thank you, Cesar. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
John Vanderloo is up next, and he'll present an item from the North Country relating to Adirondack Medical Center. John, are you on the line?
Good morning, Howard. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Good morning, Howard and directors. I'm presenting one project in the North Country awarded through the Regional Council process. This is a Round 5 Regional Council project. We are providing a $2 million grant to Adirondack Health, also known as Adirondack Medical Systems, for a portion of the cost of construction of a $13.5 million sports med facility in Lake Placid. This is a Round 5 North Country Regional Economic Development Council priority project and is in alignment with the region's strategies regarding the expansion of international sporting events and tourism in the region. The project is substantially complete, and a ribbon cutting is being arranged for mid-October. Adirondack Medical Center and its affiliates employ 850 medical professionals and is the largest private employer in the Adirondack Park. Thank you, Howard.
Okay, thanks, John.
And directors.
Any questions from directors for John on this item in the North Country? Any comments? Sorry, Eric?
I was going to move to approve.
Any comments from the public on this? Is there a motion to approve? Eric, is there a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, thanks, John. Mike Reese.
Thank you, Howard.
Yep, thank you. Mike Reese from the Mohawk Valley region. Mike?
Good morning, Howard. Good morning, directors. Today I have one project to ask for approval on. The directors are being asked to approve a $370,000 capital grant to the Nathan Littauer Hospital and Nursing Home to be reused as a portion of the cost of construction of a primary care facility in Fonda, Montgomery County, and a renal dialysis center in Gloversville, Fulton County. This grant was a Round 5 CFA award announced in December 2015. Nathan Littauer is a full-service 74-bed acute care hospital which has provided health care services to our region since 1891. Today, the hospital's network of 10 outpatient specialty care centers and their wellness center and outpatient surgery centers serve the Tri-County area of over 100,000 people. Nathan Littauer is Fulton County's second-largest employer with over 800 employees. The project includes the construction of a 5,100-square-foot primary care facility in the village of Fonda, Montgomery County, and a 7,100-square-foot renal dialysis center on the hospital's main campus in the city of Gloversville, Fulton County. The project will result in the creation of 23 new jobs. The total project cost was $4,105,000. The ESD capital grant is $370,000, and the project has been completed. The project supports the Mohawk Valley Regional Economic Development Council's opportunity agenda by providing affordable and accessible healthcare services in these highly distressed communities. I can answer any questions.
Any questions from directors for Mike on this project? Any comments from the public on this? Is there a motion to approve? Cesar, is there a second? Thanks, Eric. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Mike. Next up, we have one item from the Finger Lakes, Vinny Esposito. Vinny?
Good morning, Howard. Good morning, directors. Yes, I have one project for you this morning, which is the approval of an upstate revitalization initiative grant in the amount of $7,700,000 for the American Packaging Corporation, which has constructed and completed a new 350,000 square foot manufacturing facility in the town of Chilai in Monroe County. This project was $118 million and was completed this past May. They've already created an additional 70 jobs on top of retaining the 170 that they have in the area, on their way to creating 430 total jobs in the Rochester area. This project was a priority of the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Council and aligns with the ag and food production strategy to help continue the ecosystem for food packaging. Be happy to take any questions.
Okay, any questions from directors on this item? Comments from the public on this? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Hilda. Is there a second? Thanks, Heather. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Vinny. Moving on to the Capital Region, Mike Yevely. Mike?
Good morning, Howard. Good morning, directors. I have one project for today. We are asking the directors to approve a $600,000 Round 6 CREDC Priority Project Capital Grant to EAS Properties, LLC, for a portion of the costs associated with the renovation of an 8,200 square foot historic building and the purchase and installation of furnishing and equipment to create the Park Theater, a landmark multi-use entertainment facility in downtown Glens Falls. The total project cost is $3 million. EASM Properties, LLC is a privately owned company that was formed for the purpose of holding real estate, specifically 14 Park Street in Glens Falls, New York. The building has been renovated and restored into a 230-seat multi-use theater and entertainment venue with a 68-seat restaurant and full commercial kitchen. The facility opened in April 2018. The Park Theater grant is consistent with the CREDC's Metro strategy and strategic plan goal of bringing cities to life. The project is also located within the Glens Falls DRI zone. Park Street is an important downtown connector linking major venues like the Cool Agency Arena, Glens Falls Hospital, and SUNY Adirondack Culinary Arts Center. So the renovation and reuse of this building is an important step for the overall revitalization of the city and the DRI. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Are there any questions for Mike on this historic theater restoration project?
Just the obvious one, since they renovated it in April, have we seen success?
Mike, can you talk about what kind of success the project's had or not?
Yes, I will admit I haven't been there yet, although I will be there within the month. But I understand it's being very well received by the community. They're working, they're bringing in a lot of outside talent that the area hasn't seen. So it's live performances. They do dinner theater. The building restoration is magnificent. The company put quite a bit of effort into really going over the top here to create a very cool venue.
Okay, other questions for Mike on this project? Sorry.
Just let me say that in general, when I see things like this, I'm often curious. You go back a year later, what happened to a $3 million investment in an old theater?
Yeah.
I don't doubt that it's a beautiful place. I'm just wondering where the people are going.
Yeah, I mean, we have supported a lot of these theater restorations around the state, and a lot of them are some of the most exquisite historic buildings in downtown. So, you know, it has been an important part of our downtown revitalization strategy.
I'm not against it.
Yeah.
I understand it.
Yeah.
Will we ever get to hear whether or not these things have paid off?
All right.
I think also, in this case, the grantee, him or herself, has put 80% of the money in.
Right.
So that's a pretty important sign.
That is. I agree.
80% of the capital is coming from that person.
That's right. Mike, you're going to have to beef up your cultural intake so we can get a first-hand report.
I will be there multiple times next month, I'm here. So,
Good.
I will be able to give you an update anytime you'd like.
All right, we're going to hold you to that. Any other questions from directors or comments from the public on this historic theater restoration? Okay, is there a motion to approve? Thank you. Second? All right, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Chris Shefflin and Steve Golick from Western New York have 6 items, and we're just going to go through them one at a time, and then we'll see if there's, we'll go through all of them, and then we'll give directors the opportunity to ask questions on any of them when we're done, okay? And then we won't take 6 separate votes. Okay, take it away, gentlemen.
All right, good morning, Howard. It's Chris. I'm going to do the first 4, starting with 43 North. The directors are requested to approve a $25 million working capital grant for the continuation of the 43 North Startup Business Plan competition. This additional funding was announced in January 2017 as part of Buffalo Billion 2 and will be used to fund prize money to competition winners through 2021 for operating costs of the competition and incubator and to create a new startup ecosystem development program. 43 North will hold its 5th year of the competition in about 2 weeks on October 3rd. And since the beginning of the competition in 2014, 43 North has attracted 37 companies from around the world, half of which remain in Western New York and employ more than 250 people and have a total portfolio valuation of $332 million, in which 43 North holds a 5% equity interest. Over 80% of all past winners made or other connections to Buffalo. These companies have also raised an additional $108 million in combined venture capital and grant funds since winning their 43 North Award. Since inception, the business plan competition has generated more than 2,000 media stories in outlets around the country and world and has attracted more than 60 million social media impressions and 2 million video views. 43 North is also expanding their reach to the recently launched Ignite Buffalo, a program providing business grant mentorships for local small business owners with partners such as Facebook and M&T Bank, among others. That program just awarded a total of $1 million to 27 local small businesses, 22 of which are women-owned and 9 of which are minority-owned in July of this year. And over the next 11 months, we'll be offering ongoing educational programming, access to resources, and curated business workshops. Since 2011 in Western New York, new corporations are up 79%, and academic research and development is up over 8.5% in our region. 43 North has contributed to this growth of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Western New York, providing opportunities for founders, investors, employees, customers, suppliers, and service providers. Moving to the second item, the Jacobs School of Medicine. The directors are requested to approve a $1 million capital grant from the Regional Council Capital Fund, which is CFA Round 6, to the Research Foundation for the State University of New York on behalf of SUNY Buffalo for a portion of machinery and equipment costs associated with the approximately $9.7 million project at the Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. The center is a key element of the new Jacobs School of Medicine and will provide better training, education, and innovation opportunities through use of the center's advanced technologies and ability to simulate real-life medical scenarios. Currently, there are no simulation facilities comparable to this center in Western New York, and only 3 centers of such level exist in the country in California, Texas, or Florida. The state's investment in the center's equipment includes 21 operating stations with tables, towers, anesthetic booms, fluoroscopy, and 3D printers that will allow teams to safely test new methods, devices, and to train while actual hospital operating room time and resources can be reserved for actual patient care. This project is in one of our 3 targeted regional sectors and addresses the need for highly trained healthcare professionals, contributes to a knowledge-based economy, delivers quality health care, and helps encourage entrepreneurial endeavors in our region. The next item, Central Terminal Restoration, directors are requested to approve a $5 million grant from Buffalo Billion Funds for the Central Terminal Restoration Corp. Funding will be used to conduct repairs and renovate portions of the building to allow for reuse. In June of 2017, the Urban Land Institute, in coordination with Empire State Development and the City of Buffalo, conducted an advisory services panel to study the iconic Art Deco Buffalo Central Terminal complex on Buffalo's east side and to determine appropriate adaptive reuse. The terminal was originally opened in 1929 by the New York Central Railroad and was able to handle 200 trains and 10,000 daily passengers, as well as house 1,500 railroad employees at one time. The panel concluded that in the immediate term, the building should be stabilized and made ready to create year-round meeting and other event revenue-generating venue. This funding will begin that process by completing necessary renovations and improvements to the building's exterior, its historic waiting room, restaurant, concourse, and entry lobby, as well as installing permanent restrooms and heating and cooling systems for year-round use. The renovation will begin to breathe new life into the long-abandoned and deteriorating building and create revenue opportunities within the structure that can be used to fund further capital improvements over time. And the fourth item, Jefferson Avenue Apartments, the directors are requested to approve a $1,902,094 loan to Jefferson Apartments LP from the Better Buffalo Fund. The general partner of the project is People Inc., which is one of Western New York's largest housing not-for-profits, to advance their $31.1 million mixed-use, mixed-income, multifamily housing development on currently vacant land on Jefferson Avenue in the city of Buffalo. The project will create 89 rental units, which will be leased, as well as over 16,000 square feet of ground-level commercial space. The term of the loan is 1% for 30 years and is necessarily comparable to the terms provided by state partners at HFA and OPWDD. By way of reminder, the Better Buffalo Fund is a smart growth and placemaking initiative inside of the Buffalo Billion that is a grant and revolving loan fund dedicated to projects that encourage density and growth along transportation corridors and revitalize neighborhood commercial districts. The governor committed $40 million to the Better Buffalo Fund, $30 million in Buffalo Billion 1 and $10 million in Buffalo Billion 2. And through the first 3 rounds of the program, the fund has awarded more than $28 million to 46 projects that are renovating over 600 residential units and more than 320,000 square feet of storefront and commercial space, and has leveraged over $287 million in private investment in the city of Buffalo. I'm going to pause to let Steve Gullick present the final 2, and also note that we do have from 43 North, Alex Gress, who's the president of the organization, and Peter Bierakowski, who's the vice president at 43 North, as part of any questions and our answers in that segment. Thank you.
Thank you, directors. Today, the board is being asked to approve a general project plan amendment.
Steve,
to Riverbend Park.
Steve, are you? Can you take it off a speaker? You sound like you're underwater.
Yep. Sorry, Howard. How's that?
It sounds like you're under shallower water. No, just keep going.
Okay. Today, the board's being asked to amend a general project plan for the Riverbend Park in Buffalo. In April of 2016, Empire State Development Directors approved a grant to grant to Fort Schuyler Management Corporation to complete construction of a solar manufacturing plant on a Riverbend site in Buffalo, New York. Currently, the project is being operated by Tesla. As part of the agreement, the acquisition of the property with the Buffalo Urban Development Corporation, the property was to remain tax exempt for 10 years. We expect that tax exempt, now that Tesla's operating, is going to, the property will become taxable on the city's taxable status date in December. So we're proposing that ESD acquire the underlying fee. Fort Schuyler will retain a leasehold interest and allow the property to remain tax exempt for the term that was agreed to by the parties originally. The second item is adoption of a modified general project plan for the Canal Side Land Use Improvement Project. This project is being undergone by the Erie Canal Harbor Development Corporation, a subsidiary of ESD. The project is development of 20 acres of vacant substandard land in the city of Buffalo's Inner Harbor. A lot of development has gone on in the Inner Harbor. If you're ever in Buffalo, you need to come check it out. There's several private developments there. Erie Canal Harbor has created public space, including recreation of the historic footprint of the Erie Canal, which there's ice skating in the winter, and it's become a prime location for people to meet in the city of Buffalo. Earlier this year, Erie Canal Harbor issued an RFP to partner with a private developer to develop a portion of what's called the Odd Block. It's property owned by Erie Canal Harbor, and in August 20th of 2018, the Erie Canal Harbor Board made a recommendation that the ESD directors adopt the current modified general project plan to make the general project plan consistent with the proposed development. Board also named Sinatra Development as the winner of the RFP and to develop a portion of the South Odd Block. So what we're asking is some minor cleanup to the general project plan, which will make the Sinatra Development, which is a mixed-use facility to be built on Erie Canal Harbor property, to make it consistent with the existing general project plan. And I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. Before we get to questions, I just want to acknowledge from 43 North, Alex Gress, who joined this year as head of the organization. Alex left a significant position at KeyBank, and we're very pleased to have Alex join. And Peter Burakowski, who's the vice president of marketing, who's been with 43 North from its early days. Peter is one of the very few people I know who went from having no children on a Tuesday to having 3 children on a Wednesday. So he's been very busy. So, gentlemen, I'll give you an opportunity to say anything you'd like, and then we'll open it up to directors for any questions on any of these 6 items.
Great, thanks. Howard, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks.
Great. Well, first of all, really pleased to be part of, this is Alex Gress, president, and really pleased to be a part of the organization. And I'll just be very brief and echo what Chris Shefflin said. We've run the competition to date for 4 years. $20 million of investment has gone into 37 portfolio companies, over a $300 million valuation, and the Western New York job creation to date has been 260 jobs. You know, if you go back to Buffalo in 2012, the region attracted only $6 million of venture capital. As Chris said, we're closer to $100 million of venture capital that's come into the region just on the back of 43 North companies to date. The 5th competition is coming up this October 3rd at Shays. We are tracking for a full house of 3,000 people in attendance, and this represents 18 strong companies from 8 states and a couple of parts of Canada that are coming in. You know, these are finalists that are further along in the stages of development than companies we've had in the past, but more importantly, these are companies that really represent strong Buffalo operating plans. They are looking at us for operating partnerships, customers, vendors, and to get into that final 18, they have certainly demonstrated a commitment and a knowledge of how to operate in this region, and synergistically will mesh very well back into our area. So I'll pause there, and we appreciate and thank you for your support.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask if there's any questions from directors. I think we've gone through 6 items, some innovation items, including 43 North, several renovation, restoration, downtown revitalization, be it waterfront or historic structures in downtown Buffalo or Buffalo's east side. These are projects that are so representative of the core of Buffalo's revitalization strategy. So let me see if there's any questions. Eric?
Two quick, first one, certainly a quick question. The Jefferson Avenue apartments, those include affordable housing or mixed income housing for that project?
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you. And then on the 43 North phase, I just wanted to understand, so $25 million of working capital grants have gone in, and then you mentioned $100 million being raised, and I think you said a $300 million valuation. The $300 million valuation, was that for all the companies, or is that the valuation for the non-dilutive equity that the state gets, and have there been any sales of any of those companies?
So it's Chris Shefflin, and Alex, correct me, the $300+ million valuation is for the entire portfolio of the 37 companies. And there have been no exits to date, and so the 43 North stake is 5% of that on paper $322 million valuation.
Okay.
That's correct, Chris.
Okay.
Okay, other questions from directors on any of the 6 items presented? Any comments from the public on any of these 6 items? Is there a motion to approve all 6 items? Thank you, Hilda. Is there a second? Cesar, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, folks, for joining, all of you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Okay, let's see. Christopher, New York Broadband Program?
Thank you. Today, the Broadband Program Office is presenting the third wave of projects associated with Round 3 of the New York Broadband Program. Round 3 was announced by the governor earlier this year, and it consists of 47 projects that represent a total public-private broadband investment of approximately $384.5 million. And the first two waves of projects were presented at prior board meetings. Today, the BPO is seeking director's approval to fund two projects with Slick Network Solutions that represent a commitment of approximately $2.24 million in total state grant funding through the New York Broadband Program. These two projects by Slick will leverage $560,000 in private sector matching funds, resulting in $2.8 million of combined state and private broadband investment. These two projects will address unserved areas within two REDC regions, the North Country and the Capital Region, consistent with the program's legislative priority for unserved areas. And we estimate that they will offer broadband service to approximately 1,529 unserved housing units and other locations. So those are the two projects, and I'm happy to answer any questions by the directors.
Okay, thanks, Christopher. Any questions from directors on these broadband awards? These are Phase 3 awards for your consideration. Any comments from the public on these? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you. Eric, is there a second? Cesar, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, thanks, Christopher.
Thank you.
Simone, you've got Restore New York Communities. Could you just
Sure.
move it a little closer? Thanks.
The directors are being asked to approve one Restore New York project from Round 5 in the North Country. This is a $988,000 grant to the Village of Malone, awarded in April 2018, for assistance to renovate two vacant buildings on East Main Street for mixed-use development. The project aligns with Malone's 2009 Joint Economic Development Strategy and its 2012 Greater Malone Opportunity Area Plan. Both plans recommended public and private investment along East and West Main Street to renovate vacant buildings, preserve Malone's unique commercial architecture, and redevelop long vacant storefronts and upper floors for productive commercial and residential uses. Upon completion, the project will return two vacant buildings to productive use, including creation of 3 above-grade floors and 2 subfloors that have direct views of the Salmon River. MCM Development Malone LLC, the developer and owner, intends to lease space to a variety of retail, office, and other commercial tenants, and to potentially include a full-service restaurant and a large banquet facility, creating an estimated 15 to 20 jobs. In addition, there are plans to build 4 large apartments on the upper floors. The project will be complete in September 2019 at a cost of approximately $2.6 million. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Simone. Any questions from directors on these Restore New York projects? Any comments from the public on these Restore projects? Is there a motion to approve? Cesar, is there a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thanks, Simone.
Thank you.
Kelly Baccarizzo will present the Market New York program. Kelly?
Good morning, Howard, and to the board. Market New York has one capital project from the round 3 of the Regional Council Awards that we will be requesting the board's approval for. A grant of $810,000 was awarded to Syracuse Jet Real Estate Management, LLC, located in the Finger Lakes region, The grantee used the Market New York Capital Funds towards the construction of a 43,000 square foot facility known as the Transportation Gateway to provide regional access at Syracuse Hancock International Airport. The project provides alternative transportation options for aircraft operators, business and leisure travels, and tour operators, further increasing tourism visitation to the overall Finger Lakes region. Work on this capital project began June 2017 and was completed March 29, 2018. Located at the main entrance of the airport, this business operates as Millionaire Syracuse. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Kelly on any of these Market New York project? Any comments from the public? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Hilda. Is there a second? Cesar, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Kelly. Jonathan.
Thank you.
Jonathan has an Empire State New Market Corporation project. Jonathan?
Thank you and good morning. The U.S. Treasury's New Markets Tax Credit Program offers a non-refundable tax credit to encourage private capital investment in low-income communities with credits allocated through a competitive process. Private equity investors who make qualified equity investments may claim the New Market Tax Credit to reduce their federal income tax liability. The invested funds are loaned to special qualified businesses that are located in low-income communities. Empire State New Market Corporation, or ESNMC, which is an ESD subsidiary, applies for and obtains an allocation of tax credits, which are then sub-allocated to projects consistent with the New Market Tax Credit Program. ESNMC serves as a conduit to allocate New Market's tax credit allocation for permitted projects. The private investors provide the actual development funds, and they in turn receive the federal tax credit. Unless the ESD board separately approves a related grant, no ESNMC or ESD funds are contributed to New Market Tax Credit projects. Thus, the ESNMC board approves and administers projects for New Market Tax Credit purposes. On September 12, 2018, the ESNMC board adopted a general project plan to finance the construction and/or renovation of 5 Aldi food stores and authorized the related sub-allocation of $7 million of New Market Tax Credits. The financing will be used to pay construction and/or renovation costs, equipment for the stores, and all related costs. The ESD board is required to approve projects that demonstrate certain ESNMC-specific project goals consistent with the UDC Act. This project meets 2 ESNMC goals by retaining jobs in low-income communities and increasing the provision of goods and services for low-income community residents. These 5 particular stores are located in low-income communities designated as food deserts or similar designations across New York State, and will provide increased access to fresh, healthy, and affordable foods. Through this investment, 26 new jobs will be created and 60 jobs will be retained. All jobs at the 5 stores are expected to be available to low-income people or local residents of low-income communities. Aldi also provides comprehensive benefits to employees who work at least 25 hours per week. Thank you.
Okay, questions from directors on this New Market tax credit allocation. This is we serve as a kind of a pass-through in a sense for these federal New Market Tax Credit program. Is there any? Yeah, Eric.
No, one specific question. So I know it fluctuates every year. For 2018, did we get high amount, low amount, or?
I think we got $55 million, which was more than the first allocation we got several years ago.
Okay.
Talk a little bit, Jonathan, about what sort of our application and how we sort of distinguished it from the traditional application, which maybe explains some of the unique qualities of these projects.
Certainly. In the past, applications, or actually currently as well, New Market Tax applications, which ESNMC does, are submitted to the CDFI fund, which is a division of the Treasury, and it's a very competitive process. We compete for a fixed amount of New Market Tax Credits with other states and other actual entities. And the process is so competitive that in certain years we did not complete projects as quickly, which is a requirement, or we did not have a distinguishing enough application to actually get credits. So we've actually missed a year, several years, where we did not get any new allocation. What we did in this current tax, New Markets tax credit year, is we put in our application that we were going to do certain very specific types of projects which are not necessarily popular with other applicants. One is to do a number of small projects, and this particular application before the board today involves 5 different small projects, so that meets that New Markets tax requirement that we put in our application. Another is food-related activities, and this obviously is grocery stores fulfills that. And another was projects that are located in rural areas. And one of the projects is located in a rural area and satisfies that aspect. So we did receive 55 million of tax credits in this series or round, and we're trying to complete as many projects as we can before various deadlines, which will enhance our application for future credits.
So it meets the guidelines for the New Market tax credit legislation. It meets guidelines for the UDC. If it weren't, we should note, if this wasn't in what we sometimes refer to as food deserts or LMI income areas, we wouldn't be advancing supermarket projects. It's not a tradable sector of the economy as such, and it's unusual that we're advancing projects relating to supermarkets, but it has more to do with the New Market tax credit program and the shortage of available food and fresh food in a lot of communities. So you should understand that. Any other questions from directors? Any comments from the public? Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Heather. Is there a second? Eric, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Our final 2 items relate to Life Science Initiative, and both will be presented by Maria Mitchell. She is joined on the phone by Dr. Jill Taylor, Director of the Wadsworth Center, who is also with us to answer any questions you may have on any of these items. Take it away, Maria.
Thanks, Howard. Good morning, everybody. I am very pleased to bring these particular items to the board. They are part of Governor Cuomo's $620 million Life Science Initiative, which, as you know, was created to establish a thriving commercial life science sector in New York. And the primary goal of this initiative is to attract, grow, start, and retain businesses in New York and continue to develop a vibrant life science clusters around the state. As you may remember, Governor Cuomo also appropriated $750 million to rebuild the Wadsworth Center Public Health Lab in Albany, which is the largest state public health lab in the United States. And as part of that redevelopment, which I brought to the board in July, the Life Science Initiative was tasked with developing public-private partnerships utilizing Wadsworth's unique scientific capabilities. So it is one of those partnerships that we pursued that's being presented today. The proposal is the second of these private partnerships that ESD has identified for this purpose. The first I brought last time in between Regeneron and Wadsworth to research Lyme disease, and that was approved by the board in July. So this request is to make 2 grants that fall under this initiative. The first is an $11.2 million working capital grant to Health Research, Inc., which is a not-for-profit corporation that administers funding to support the Department of Health Research and Programs. Its president and board members are DOH officials. And the second is also an $11.2 million working capital grant to Ellume Health Solutions, LLC, which is a subsidiary of Merck, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the globe, as I think you all know. And Ellume will provide $37.48 million in matching funds for this project. Under these grants, HRI is partnering with Illume and OpGen Inc. on behalf of Wadsworth to build a tracking and surveillance network to detect, treat, and prevent the spread of antibiotic-resistant infections. Illume will create a software platform for use by the Wadsworth Lab as well as hospitals and healthcare providers to track and prevent antibiotic-resistant infections outbreaks. And OpGen will provide a genomic test to sequence the DNA of the antibiotic-resistant pathogens for use in this network. This new software network will be able to determine whether an infection is in fact antibiotic-resistant and will identify specific drugs that will or won't be effective. This process currently takes 3 to 4 days, and this new software network will shorten that window to 3 to 4 hours. Thus preventing major drug-resistant outbreaks, saving lives, and developing treatment. I think you've probably all heard at some time about these outbreaks among hospitals that cause many deaths and great morbidity as well. And very importantly, from our perspective, as a direct result of these grants, Illume, which again is a subsidiary of Merck, is moving its business operations from New Jersey to Albany, creating 115 new high-paying jobs in New York State. Merck has already indicated that the success of this relationship will likely lead to further collaborations with Wadsworth and the potential to bring more jobs and businesses to New York. We think we're very excited about this, and I think a year ago when we were pursuing this, never really thought it would happen. Illume's relocation to the capital region for this partnership serves as a very clear illustration of the distinct commercial benefit for pharmaceutical and other related companies to take advantage of the very important and unique scientific assets of the Wadsworth Lab and seriously consider a move to New York or to the capital region. I think it really demonstrates the hidden jewel that we've had in the Wadsworth Lab to really invigorate our life sciences community here and our ecosystem. This project, in addition to the Regeneron project approved in July, are exactly the kinds of initiatives that promote cluster development, creating labor mobility, and further developing the region's life science industry ecosystem, which is the primary goal of the governor's initiative. The project will proceed in sequence stages, starting with a pilot demonstration project to assess the feasibility of the network over the first year. The pilot will be concluded within 12 months of initiation. The pilot is estimated to cost approximately $4.74 million, which will be funded entirely by a portion of the ESD grant to HRI. If the pilot is successful, the remaining balance of this ESD grant to HRI will fund the expansion of the surveillance network pilot hospitals to hospitals statewide, primarily funding Wadsworth's role in that expansion. After a successful conclusion of the pilot program, ESD anticipates activating the second $11.2 million grant to Illume. The ESD grant to Illume will also fund the expansion of the network to hospitals statewide, specifically funding Illume's role in the expansion. The surveillance network is anticipated to be implemented in hospitals statewide over 5 years, and Illume and HRI will be required to deliver milestone reports, and funding will be pursuant to meeting milestones in building this surveillance network. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions. And
Okay. Thanks, Maria. I think I just want to recognize Maria because this is it takes a lot of work. You know, we bring these things to the board. It takes a few minutes, but it takes a year before it gets here. And, you know, this is the intersection of public health in many ways and economic development, where we're really looking for companies and literally identifying companies that can potentially leverage the kinds of research projects and initiatives that are going on at Wadsworth that can help us develop a innovation ecosystem and develop business around where we have core capabilities and unique strengths. So that whole process of identifying prospects, going out and talking with businesses, trying to get companies to the point where they're literally uproot themselves and connect into Wadsworth, these are no small matters and no easy tasks. And it's exciting for the capital region because they have this unique asset that the governor and the state is now investing more money in. And, using that asset to help drive economic development was one of the charges that the governor and we've set out for ourselves. And so it takes a lot of work to get to this point, and I just want to recognize that. It's doesn't just fall in your lap.
Thank you, Howard.
Questions from directors on this item? Comments from the public on this? Is there a motion to approve? Thanks, Cesar. Second, Eric. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. I don't believe we have any other business on our agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn? Hilda? Okay. Thank you all.
Okay.